Hello, friends. This is the Grow Podcast. I'm Wendy Jo, and here is my friend Ashley.
Hey, Wendy, how's everything going for you today?
It's going great. I love this topic, of course. I know you do too.
Yes.
We're talking about cannabis today.
Yeah, I mean, I probably said this on the last one that we did about cannabis, but it's absolutely my thing.
Yes. I think you did say that. You know it's my thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I listened to it in preparation for this one. I didn't want to overlap too much, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my things too. And, I credit the cannabis plant with really saving my life. So I love her. Like, I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you said her, because I mean, it is a energetic force. It's its own life. And, we put a lot of restriction and a lot of rules around the cannabis plant. And, I just find it so interesting that us humans want to do that so bad. And that's a natural substance that comes out of the earth.
Yeah. So we're talking about, grow rights and how cannabis connects us to nature, which really connects us to our own spirituality. And so, I spent quite a bit of my activism time talking about grow rights. I originally came from a state, Massachusetts, which has grow rights, and with their original passing of their medical cannabis. And then, of course, then it went recreational. So everyone can grow. And I feel like that's the way it should be. It's a plant.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about human rights, human rights are at the heart of spirituality, in my opinion. We all have basic rights, and I guess people argue about what those are.
Yeah, it's so weird that we want to argue about it, because these are things that are natural to us, like that we're extensions of the earth, just like plants are and trees are extensions of the earth. They breathe in what we breathe out and vice versa. So I'm like, why do we keep trying to restrict this particular plant? I know that it does have some effects on the body, but how are they any different than the pharmaceuticals that we put in our body with their side effects? So I don't know. I struggle with that. What do you think?
Yeah, I take a deep breath.
I know.
Because, and it's not just cannabis that is restricted, of course. We can talk about mushrooms, fungi that are restricted. And you're absolutely right. Pharmaceutical drugs, many at the heart of it are from plants, right? But we're in a pill culture. So if it's in a pill, somehow that's better, even though it's got other chemicals with it that may cause more problems. And that's not to say that plants can't have side effects as well. Of course they do. One of the great side effects of cannabis is that you get high.
Right? Right? How dare you?
Yeah, like we're supposed to be ashamed of that for some reason. I hear people say, well, I want to use it for the medicinal properties, but I don't want to get high.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people that I talk to, when they say that, they're scared of losing control. Like they feel like somehow the plant is going to make them lose control, and especially people with these edible experiences, the crazy ones where they're like under the table, like yelling for help or something.
Yeah.
So I think that partnered with like the marketing, like people are just scared of what that high experience is like. But in reality, most people just really just go to sleep.
Yeah, and I respect that. I do know people who become very paranoid. They don't like the feeling, but usually it's because they have not learned enough about the plant and how it can work with their body.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've had bad experiences as well, but I never would think, oh, we should restrict this. We shouldn't allow people to grow it. We should restrict the percentage of, THC or the other cannabinoids for this reason. To me, that's trying to control what nature gave us rather than learn about it and figure out how it will work with your own body or with someone else's body if that's part of your work.
Yeah, I think I just think it's an interesting phenomena because you're right. We naturally have access to a lot of things, and like our culture just wants to control everything.
Mm-hmm.
Control the water, like you can't get clean water unless you live here, you can't, or pay this tax, or you buy filtering. Like you have to always invest in the thing that you naturally have access to if you could just have access to it, right? And so and that's like the plant, it grows and it can recreate itself. It can drop its seeds and recreate itself. You don't need to do anything to make it grow necessarily. Not in the technical sense, but I mean, just in the cyclical sense,
Sure, right.
And so I just find it so interesting that we're going to hold these seeds hostage. We're going to keep this plant hostage. And then you can have these other plants over here. Like you can get this mum or whatever every fall and you pay us $14.99. We happy with you. But if I want to get that plant over there, you want to, put it under lock and key. I just think it's such an interesting thing.
Yeah, I agree. And how are these decisions made? Who's making the decisions and what is their motivation? That's kind of what I look at in these situations. Some people will say their motivation is they don't want people to harm themselves. Is that a human right to use as you choose and potentially harm yourself? I don't know. Maybe, but, I think when we look at who made these decisions, how they came into law, and what was their motivation, I think many times there are things that are revealed that aren't so based in caring about humanity.
And who is defining harm? Who who is saying that something is harmful to you? Because as far as I'm concerned, the chemicals that we give our kids is more harmful than any other plant that I've ever worked with. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what we're actually saying here.
Right. What is right? If you look at the food supply, it's so damaged, and yet we continue to consume it. We give it to our children, sometimes out of lack of choice because of money. That's another whole thing. But
Right.
I've always thought food should be free because it's a necessity to life. Why isn't that a human right?
And then if you get any subsidy from our government, because technically it is a human right, but then that's why they offer like food stamps and things like that. You get the bottom of the barrel food. You don't even get food that's quality enough to really nourish your body. So
Right.
like
Mm-hmm.
what are we saying about that? Or these food deserts that are out here where you only can get access to junk.
Right. Right. There's so many pieces of that, and so what are we saying about freedom and human rights today in this country? Do we really have freedom? That's a whole nother topic too.
Right.
So in coming back to cannabis, the more states that pass, at least medical, the more rules that we have.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at it from a human rights perspective anymore, I don't think. Greed comes into it, control, all these things that this beautiful plant can provide are broken up into what's legal and what's not legal. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's interesting. I don't even have too many more. Like, I'm on a podcast and I'm supposed to have something to say, but it's just it's mind boggling to me. Just the reality of that. I just, you know, I don't know if there is a real concern for the evolution of humans and how we define the rights of said humans, because I just feel like there's so many things that have been neglected to consider, but we put all of this attention on this one particular thing that has not killed anybody on record according to our government.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be right back. How are cannabis grow rights and spirituality connected? Well, I'm Wendy Edge from the Grow Podcast, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts about that. Having grow rights has to do with personal freedom, and spirituality has everything to do with personal freedom as well. In order to fully embrace spiritual practices surrounding the cannabis plant, people need to be able to freely grow the plant as they see fit. And in general, it's a human rights issue because cannabis is a healing plant, and people should have the ability and the access to grow this plant for their own health and wellness. And so, are grow rights and spirituality connected? Absolutely. Hey there, friends. Wendy Jo from the Grow Podcast. I am super excited today because I am introducing you to Synergy Skinworks, your trusted source for medicinal cannabis patches. That's right, a transdermal system for cannabis medicine. And it doesn't matter where you place it on your body because the medicine goes where the blood flows. It's 97% bioavailable in this form, and the patch won't move if you sweat or get it wet. They are available in all 38 dispensaries in Arkansas and also in Oregon and Montana, and I just know they're going to be available all across the country because it is brilliant. As a patient, I find them to be discreet, easy to use, and I can place it and forget about it for 24 hours. As a health professional, I love it that patients can give their lungs a break. If you'd like, you can learn more at synergyskinworks.com. And I've got my patch on. Peace out. And we're back. We're talking about cannabis and human rights and its connection to nature and therefore to spirituality. That's a lot. That was a mouthful. But you were talking about the government before the break. And, it just feels like, yeah, if it's not a basic human right, it's clearly not being looked at as a basic human right by our government because it's all based on your zip code, what kind of access you have to it, at least law-wise.
Yeah, for sure. So every state is different. And, even if you have the laws in place, even having access still is limited depending on if you have a facility that grows that you can trust. And, there are all these things that go into it in order for you to get access to the plant. So even though I think access is growing, like I don't want to neglect the fact that it is becoming more accessible to a lot of different people. It's still limited for lots of different other groups of people. And especially because it's a cash pay system right now. So if you ain't got the cash, you're not getting access. Right. That piece always irks me. I've always said repeatedly over the years, legalization does not equal access because of cost. It's still a classist system, like most things in this country, like food and clothing, any of it. It's all a classist system. And it really is a shame because the cannabis plant, she is so giving, and that connection to the plant, I feel like helps with one's own healing, whether it's spiritually, physically, mentally, So, like, for instance, where I live, there are no grow rights. And I feel like it's an infringement on our human rights to tell us we can't grow this plant.
and it puts everyone in a position from having to purchase from the dispensary, which is expensive and may not be accessible if you live far out in the country and can't get there. There's so many pieces that make it inaccessible because there are no grow rights. So what are grow rights like in Maryland?
So it's severely limited. We believe we can only get access or grow 2 plants at a time.
So there's no immature plants, like it's just two plants.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah. So yeah, pause on that. But you know, and I think the other thing about it is, you know, going back to the human rights aspect, anything that we put into our bodies, I believe that we should all have access to the entire experience with whatever we choose to consume. So if we choose not to grow it, then yeah, we should have access to places that do. But then if you do choose to grow it, and I'm not just talking about the plant, I'm talking about all food, right? Like all things that we put into our bodies. Like there's something very, very highly therapeutic about sourcing something from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And it's proven. We talk to nutritionists, growing your own vegetables is highly therapeutic. Why do older adults in retirement begin to start their own gardens and do all these things? Is because it does bring you back to the earth. It is healing, it's grounding, it's wellness. So, you know, I think that's really what we're limiting when we're saying, hey, you can only have 2 of these, because we're forcing you to, again, I went through to a thought that probably is a little too controversial for this, but separating people from their source is the easiest way to maintain control of the person. So if you don't know where it comes from, if you don't know where you come from, therefore you don't know who you are. And so when we do that with the plant, I just, you know, I feel very strongly about it, and I don't think it's right.
Yeah, you brought up so many great points in there. And I think that what you said really brings it to the heart of the matter with spirituality, because spirituality is about learning who you are and living into that. And as you do that, you find your path. And, you know, if you don't have, if someone else is controlling what you put in your body, how are you fully in control of that process? And you're absolutely right. It is very grounding. And also, you know, there's something about making your own medicine and your own food, like you said, sourcing from beginning to end, where it just, you know, I feel like we're meant to do that. And we've come so far away from it, you know, here in the US with the invention of like the supermarket, where we have no idea where the stuff comes from. You know, it does separate us spiritually from what we're consuming.
Yeah.
On the food side and on the cannabis side as well. So like for me personally, when I was living in Massachusetts, I started out with a caregiver who grew plants for me, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt so connected to them and to the product he was bringing me. Yeah. It really made a difference as I was trying to heal, come off of pharmaceuticals, reconnect with myself, and figure out who I was at that point. You know, I felt like it was my lifeline, that nature lifeline. Yeah. And also, he would bring me all the fan leaves, and I juiced them.
Oh, nice.
And so that was amazing. Like, I felt so connected to the plant, and the plant works best by the entourage effect. So, you know, smoking, making some edibles, making my raw drinks. My body was, when I look at photos of myself from that period, and this was coming off of like 14 of the 16 pharmaceuticals I was on. Wow. When I look at myself in that period, I feel it. Like I was so in sync with my body. Mm. You know, my endocannabinoid system was satisfied and I was balanced, you know. And I think we've robbed people of experiences like that by saying you can have this, you can have two plants. Is two plants like what if there's two or three patients living in the house that use cannabis? Are two plants really going to give them everything they need?
Yeah. Yeah, it's bananas. I don't know. I just feel like, and I guess that's why I am an advocate the way that I'm an advocate, is because I feel like the further we get into this space, because at the end of the day, we have to commercialize it in order for it to be an industry. And the more we get into this commercialized version of what we do with this plant, the further removed we're going to be from, the source, even down to forgetting the history of the plant, and especially in the United States and its roots and why we came to restrict it in the beginning. So, as we do that, like, I don't want us to forget that. I want us to relish in it and recognize the progress, but also give people access to opportunities to be able to tap into, its natural goodness. And, and at the end of the day, are dispensaries bad? No, they're not bad, actually, because even though maybe you can't get the freshest fruit, at least you get access to some fruit, right? And so, I just think there's space for all of it. I just feel like we're just moving more away from the holistic point of view, as opposed to, where we're actually going.
Right. Yeah, all that. and did we or do we have to make it into an industry? That that's a we'll tackle that a little further in the next segment. So
Yeah.
we'll be right back.
So first things first, yes, I cut my hair. Now let's talk about grow rights. So growing plants at home is something that some people should have access to, just like growing any other flower, vegetable, but it's just so important that you understand the rules of growing your own plants at home. So obviously we need to consider your state laws. And if you need some sort of licensing or permissions, please get that. Based on those laws, you can determine whether or not you're allowed to grow inside or outside, and that'll also change the way that your plants grow. For those of us who live close by our neighbors, please consider yourself a good neighbor and consider their feelings in the process. Plants are living organisms. Please take care of your plants if you're going to start the grow process. Learn as much, do as much research. Of course, there's trial and error involved. And finally, I'm always interested in knowing how your grow experience is going. Growing plants can be so therapeutic, but please consider your laws in the process.
Hey there, Wendy Jo, co-host of the Grow Podcast. Also, Wendy Edge, occupational therapist. And I wanted to tell you about my new business where I'm combining the principles of occupational therapy, coaching, and spirituality, and wellness, of course. On the website, you'll see that I'm doing Osho Zen card readings, spiritual coaching, spirit paintings, and so much more. So if you want, check it out, edgecoachingandconsulting.com.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The Highline Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
And we're back. So I asked a question before the break, and I'm asking it of you, Miss Ashley. Do we have to make it into an industry, cannabis?
I don't think so, but that's just where it's going. Like, that's where the collective consciousness is going. We're all fighting for a Schedule 1 status. And the only way that, to get it off of Schedule 1 status, and the only way that the federal government is going to allow it to be off of Schedule 1 status is if they can make money off of it. And because that's just the way our system works. We live in a capitalistic society. And so the government is always going to function based in that model. And so if we really want it to be moved off Schedule 1, yeah, it does have to have some money attached to it. On the flip side, could we have avoided this? Possibly, but just not where we are.
Right. Yeah, I understand. It's true. My hope is it will be descheduled. I've been saying that forever. I would rather see it descheduled and everyone be able to grow their own medicine if they want to. Not everybody can or wants to, but,
Yeah.
I do think it should be part of our basic human rights. to grow what as we see fit. The industry part of it may or may not make that easier, because if money is in the forefront, that's where the decisions are made from.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, that's the society we live in. That's where we landed. And there was no way that it was just gonna, oh yeah, we know it's medicinal. We knew that all along, but we're gonna acknowledge it now, and here's your rights, do what you want.
Right.
That was never gonna happen.
Right.
Maybe I had hopes, but and I'm not naive. It's just when you really understand, like you said, when you really understand the history of cannabis in this country, of hemp, of the whole cannabis plant family of plants, you realize that they took it from us, and they're not going to fully give it back until they're making their money.
Yeah. And that's just what it is. So I think it's just important for us as individuals to inform ourselves, to know what we're choosing to put in our bodies. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, they don't know nothing that is related to their body. They don't know what they're eating, why they're eating it, why you're smoking it, why you're eating the edible, why you're putting it on your body. Like, there are some things to think about and to consider as it affects your body, the way that it's going to affect it, because we're all different. It is a spiritual connection with this plant, and the way that you receive it is going to be customized for your personal experience. And that's why I created Cannabis Nursing Solutions, because I knew that health and wellness needed to be paired in with the idea of intentional consumption, and, being able to prepare ourselves to be able to do that intentionally. I'll tell you, never mind. I'm not going to tell you that.
Oh, tell me, you have to now.
I'll tell you afterward. I'm not going to tell you on the show because I don't want it to be live, but, yeah, so just knowing why you're doing what you're doing, and being intentional about why you choose to consume, I think is just something that's being missed from the conversation.
I think so, and perhaps it's missing from the conversation because, hey, when you give the people control of something, or let them know that they really are ultimately in control, you're taking the control away. Right. So I think it's really important to have these conversations. I think it's a good reminder to realize that this plant, any plants that you're growing, grounds you and helps to bring you in the moment. And then at the end helps you nourish in some way. And so it is your right. We still have to live within the laws of the land, and we'll see how it all pans out in the end. But whatever access you have, and I hope if you're listening or watching that you do have some kind of access, I think just figure out how it fits into your paradigm, to your health, wellness, spirituality. It's a very holistic experience, or it can be. But really learning about your own body is key, and how you can use it to make those connections.
I love that.
All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great week. Bye.